So last weekend, I had another one of those bad mom moments. You just have to say that because you're my mom, but I sure felt like a bad mom at the time. So you know how Laura has choir practice the third Thursday of every month after school? Yeah, well, I was already running late to pick her up, which happens, but when I got there, I knew I was in trouble. The whole school was empty. Laura and her teacher were the only ones standing in the parking lot waiting. I was supposed to pick her up at 4:15, not 4:30, and I was already 30 minutes late for a 4:30 pickup. Laura was holding back the tears, and I think her teacher thought I was such a flake. Yeah, it was so embarrassing, especially when I saw on my cell phone with 3 missed calls from the school, which I didn't get. I felt terrible, but here's the encouraging part of the story. So I had my mom's group earlier today, and they asked the story or question, "What's your story?" And the whole incident was so fresh in my mind that out came the story. I gotta say, I was scared they would all think that I was some kind of unorganized mess. However, they were really sweet, and several of them actually shared similar situations, which ended up getting us into a really good conversation. Yeah, I felt like I got to know them on such a deep personal level today. It was probably one of the best moms groups yet.
I love how Claire's group talked about sharing their stories, and we all have stories. We have faith stories, we have our mom stories, we have experience stories, and so, can you guys think of one of your stories that you could share with us that just helps another mom, or a time where you shared a story and it did help another mom, or just even a story that you have that you know that you need to in some way steward, because at some point in time it's going to help another mom. So can you think of one of those?
I got married right out of high school, actually. Met my husband, and I figured I fell in love. I had no intentions of doing that, but I fell in love with him and like, this is it for me. And of course, moved 3,000 miles away from home, and and been living here ever since. And that's 22 years ago. Mm-hmm. So,
wow.
Yeah.
But that could help another mom knowing that, because most of us don't think that our kids. So were you 18 when you got married?
I was 17.
You were 17 when you got married.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And so that would help another mom to go, who might be having a child. Okay, one of my girls got married when they were 18.
Not me.
Nope, it wasn't you. But I remember just being like, no, you're too young. But you have that to offer someone like me who was walking through that. And so, yeah, that's a good one. Thank you. That's great. You got one, Sunitha?
My most defining mom story is losing my mom when my oldest was 4 months old. I have had people fill in the gap continually throughout my mom journey, taking small steps in taking my kids to Chicago, something that she probably would have done. Mm-hmm. I had a lady at our church teach me how to can. Things that were important, that my mom would have happily taught me had she had the chance. Right. But my mom journey was just starting when she passed away. Wow. So it has inspired me that when I am in that stage of life and my kids aren't young, that I want to intentionally reach out to other people who maybe just don't have a mom geographically close, or maybe emotionally aren't close with their mom. Right. But I know how much that it has touched me, that other people have stopped and paused and thought, how can I help Sunitha in her mom journey?
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Good. That's really good. We've actually had women that have, they come to our Hearts at Home conferences year after year after year. And, I love getting to hear people's stories or when they write in. And I've gotten a handful over the years that have said, I lost my mother when either my kids were young or even before I had children. And Hearts at Home has been my surrogate mother, because it's where they've learned so many things that that normally would have been passed from one generation to another. And so we definitely need each other in that way. That's good.
Instead of going to college right out of high school, I actually joined a missions organization, and so I actually traveled for about 2 years. And I was in places like South Africa and Taiwan, and it was really good for me. I had to grow up, because there was I'm in Taiwan, so if something goes wrong, no one will help me. So God used it a lot in my life, just to mature me. But then I think that the way I can help other moms, different friends, is a couple ways. One is for their own children, if their own children were to want to do something non-traditional after high school, wanting to maybe do missions or something instead of going right into college, encouraging them that, because I actually went back and I did get my degree. So, but you don't have to get that degree for God to use you, basically, and for God to be putting His working in you, basically. It's not the only path that God has for everybody, and so just to encourage them that an 18-year-old, that they can hear God, so they don't have to. You don't have to be putting your own desires on them at that point, but you can be encouraging them in their faith to follow what God's leading for them. And my parents did that for me, and that was really important.
Yeah. And you know what I was just thinking is then your mom has a story to share of what that would have been like to send her 18-year-old daughter, to allow her 18-year-old daughter to go on the mission field and to be in places like Taiwan and all the places that you were, where I'm sure that was scary for her, the letting go.
Yeah.
Really scary. In fact, it makes me think of a story of when Anne was, you were probably a freshman in high school when you did that trip to Venezuela. A sophomore in high school, and so she asked. There was a teen magazine, a Christian teen magazine, and they were doing this trip to Venezuela. And I mean, hundreds of thousands of girls got this teen magazine, and Annie came to us and said, can I apply for this, trip? And we're thinking, sure, go ahead. Thousands of people are going to apply, and you're probably not going to get in. And she did. She got in. And so it was a 2-week trip to Venezuela. Okay, this is in the day and age before everybody had cell phones, okay? And it was before 9/11. So I remember I took her to the airport and walked her to the gate, and I watched her walk down, to the airplane, and I just thought, I have no way to know if she arrives safely. They promised there would be people waiting on the other end. I was so scared, and yet it was an important part of her faith journey. It was an important part of her learning to be independent. But it is a story I sometimes share with moms who need to learn to let go and who are struggling letting go. And so I think that, those make such a difference for people.
One of my stories that I think is important to share is when my son Landon was 3 or 4 months old, he fell below his birth weight, and so he was labeled failure to thrive. And as a mother, that is like devastating to hear that your child is labeled failure to thrive, and instantly the mommy guilt sets in of, I should have noticed, I'm sure there's something I could have done. And we switched him to formula, and he started thriving. He started gaining that weight, but the emotional toll that experience took really sent me into a deep depression that I hadn't experienced before in my life. And beginning to share that story with my friends really brought them around me, and my friends really started to carry me through that season of time. And I think that's first of all, depression is an important piece that I think we need to talk about, and it's a reality for many moms. But at the same time, sharing that story also brings other people out from that, or at least to know they're not alone.
Yeah, I think I love that, because what we were just talking about was sharing stories so it would benefit someone else. You shared your story and it benefited you. Right. I mean, it also benefited others, because they know if they've experienced that, they're not alone. But it also benefited you, so people really knew what was going on.
I felt freedom from the mommy guilt suddenly, because I was sharing my story, and God was using that to redeem that place in my life.
That's good.
Yeah. So, what are some ways that that people have shared their stories that have affected you? We've talked about sharing your own story, but when has someone shared their story and it affected you?
You know, I think of one particular time when I had gotten a phone call from the principal, and our son had, yes, I know this is going to sound terrible, he'd taken a weapon to school. Now, it was a pocket knife, and for our son, it wasn't, a pocket knife wasn't a weapon, it was a tool, because he liked to whittle wood, but it was also, in the school setting, considered a weapon, and so they suspended him for 3 days. And I just remember thinking, no, my kids don't get suspended. Good moms their kids don't get suspended. I wanted to be a good mom. Now I'm not feeling like a good mom. And so I was actually, during that time, I had a group of ladies, and we met on a regular basis. And so I thought, am I going to tell them or not? I'm not going to tell them. I'm not going to say anything. And so I decided I would. Finally, I got there, and I thought, I'm just going to spill the beans. So I totally did. Now, one mom was in the same season of life I was in. One was several years ahead, and then one was in the infant season. So we're talking, and I lay it out there, and I say, yeah, well, you know, we were kind of catching up with each other's lives. And I said, well, I got one suspended from school. And everybody's like, what? What happened? And so I told him. And then the mom that was in the same season of life as me, she says, oh, that happened to us last year. 3 days, it'll be over like that, you know. And then this other gal who's several years ahead of me, she was like, oh, that happened when this one was so, you know, this age. And I was like, and you're both good moms, you know. I just needed that perspective in that moment. So I kind of shared my story, but then they shared theirs. And I was okay, I feel normal.
I know with, you know, the whole baby not sleeping, newborn nightmare. Mine was pretty intense. Just my son was very, he still doesn't like sleep, but like I'd say the first 4 months of his life, he was awake every 2 hours. So I was too. And so, but.
Can you say sleep deprived?
Very sleep deprived. But like sharing, getting through that, and then also just friends, the whole, you know, baby sleeping, those stories, they seem redundant, but they were so encouraging, you know, just to know, okay, other babies aren't sleeping. And it, you know, it seems so simple, but when you're in that moment and you're sleep deprived and the world is too difficult for you, it's wonderful to know that there's other people who know exactly how you're feeling, and it's not just like, you know, you and it's your baby and you guys can't figure out how to get to sleep. It's just this season, and it's going to end, and it's okay, and you're in it together. And so even, you know, though, just sharing baby sleeping stories has always encouraged me.
Yeah, that's really good, because when I had my first, like, I helped my sister with her babies. Why didn't anybody ever tell me they don't sleep through the night? You know, that was a nightmare. Rude awakening. So, actually, this is a fresh one. Actually, my friend who's struggling with an older son right now, who is, you know, just doing some things that are not, you know, God's way, and you know, it's so hard to know how to talk to her and how to encourage her, because I'm not there, you know, but just listening to her and just learning from her how to pray for my kids, you know, so it's just that's one of the things that I'm learning lately is just how to pray for my children and, you know, things to look out for. But, yeah,
and that's coming from her story,
yeah,
really.
Yeah.
You're kind of changing the way that you're maybe praying for your own kids because of that.
Because of it.
Yeah, that's good.
I've had a lot of the nurses that I work with kind of help me balance home life and work life, just sharing different experiences that they've had. And it's not always specifically just one tip, but just saying, hey, I know how it is, and you'll get through it. Or, you know, after being out all night at the hospital, people offering to, you know, come in and help out with the shift so I can sleep, or just helping in the process of doing both.
Yeah. Having women that have lived through it, they've figured it out in some way, what a difference that can make. Yeah, I know when I speak at moms groups and different things, that different mom organizations, I will often tell them that because of the age range of our kids, we had, I had preschoolers for 17 straight years. And so I'm often like, okay, let me just be a visual aid that you can survive it and even thrive in it, because oftentimes those preschool years are just those years where you're just absolutely exhausted. And you need that reminder that you will get to the other side of it, like you said, So just even sharing little things like that, maybe you're on the other side and that helps somebody. That's good.
We have chosen to homeschool our kids, and the reason why we came around that was just because a few friends happened to mention their journey and what they were going through, and so it kind of became an option after they shared their story. So even just the casual conversations of sharing their journeys has opened up that possibility for our family as well.
That makes sense. Good. So it's just a good reminder. We need to share our stories. We need to steward them. We need to, just look for those opportunities to share a word of encouragement. Good stuff. All right, who's got our I think it's you, Beth.
Yeah,
Tip of the day.
I got the tip. Okay, all right, get ready for this. Okay, so you have sheets and you have the pillowcase and they're all set. Okay, so after they're clean, not when they're dirty, that's weird, you fold them up and you put them inside the pillowcase so that they all stay together. And then you put them in your closet. Then they're all ready to go if you have guests or you just have, middle of the night, toddler, oops. They're all ready to go. And you don't have to go looking for them in different places. They're all in the same place.
That's great.
Great tip. Thank you for joining us today. Your stories are powerful. Don't keep them to yourself. We're better together when we share our stories.